Hello loves, this is a video about Ogres by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which is a book about some big, mean, scary things called ogres, who we sometimes call landlords, or if we're feeling cheeky, the masters. And before we begin, this video is going to contain some major spoilers for the book. I'm actually going to do a quick rundown of it right after this, but this is what they call a novella, which is right there in the middle between a short story and a full-on book. The audiobook is only about 4.5 hours long, and I highly suggest going and checking it out. The narrator, Emma Newman, does such a good job bringing it to life.
So I've done lots and lots of audiobooks.
I'm not going to do my best to describe the book here, but unless you've read it, you don't really get the emotion of the book all that well. Now, let me go ahead and recap Ogres by Adrian Tchaikovsky so you have some idea of what this video is going to be about.
Hear ye, hear ye. Gather round and listen to the story of Torquell, slayer of ogres, hero of the people, and our chosen leader. And this book kicks off with our protagonist, rascally Torquell, who's also us because this book's written in second person. Torquell challenged the established order of our worlds. As the nursery rhyme goes, the masters in their castle, the workers in their fields. Now, pushed one straw past a camel's back breaking, Torquell does the unthinkable. He kills one of the masters, one of the ogres, and kicks off a series of events that eventually leads to a violent Leninist-style revolution. And yes, this is a book about revolution, part of a triptych of novellas that Tchaikovsky calls Terrible Worlds, Revolutions. It's a very aptly named series. Each book focuses on a different terrible world and the inequalities that led to that world's existence, and a revolution to fix it. Quick aside, I really like that word, revolution. It's like revolving, like it's cyclical, but also like re-evolution, the constant search for novelty and surpassing what came before it. Super good word, really love it. Now, following the murder, young Torquell is sent away to one of the big ogre cities, where all the most prestigious ogre pricks reside. One such prestigious ogre named Isadora takes an interest in Torquell. She's one of those science types who collects humans with brilliant minds, which Torquell does not have. She actually saves Torquell from capital punishment by adopting him as a pet. See, as Torquell comes to learn, humans ain't supposed to be violent. Torquell immediately doesn't fit in with these science freaks. He's dumb as rocks, ain't he? So Isadora has a servant, Minith, educate Torquell, helps him read all the books in the library about the world's history and how the ogres came to rule. She has him read about this time before the ogres ruled, called the Brink, a time back when the world was on the edge of collapse. Here's where we learn the big twist of the book. Ogres is just humans without genetic modification. See, back in the day, during the Brink, scientists devised a way to shrink humans down into tiny little non-violent vegetarians. You know, like Smurfs.
Every Smurf is smurfing a good job, Papa Smurf.
And there's a big fat problem with the Smurf plan right off the bat. Should be obvious to anybody who's watched Smurfs, really. For the Smurf solution to work, you can't have any Gargamels.
Adriel, it's a diamond! A Smurf! They've got the diamonds. Gotcha!
Help!
Either everybody has to be a Smurf, or you get a society dominated by giants. Now remember, the solution doesn't work unless everybody becomes a Smurf. So, the government enforcing the Smurf procedure would eventually have to turn violent and force the procedure on its populace. And then once they're done forcing everybody else, they'd have to be completely altruistic and voluntarily go through the procedure themselves.
I'm a new man, Papa Smurf.
Fiddle Smurfs!
So, you know, that didn't happen. Anyway, after that, Torquell's taken to the front lines of the war, where the red general is fighting the blue general, or the yellow general, or something. It doesn't really matter, we're just there to deliver the latest war technology to the generals so they can keep their game interesting. Eventually, Torquell runs away from Isadora's estate, and he returns to his little village and the ogre that started all of this, Sir Peter. And he kills Sir Peter just like he killed his son. And he keeps going, starting a full-on proletariat revolution in order to tear down the oppressive ogre society. And in the process, he becomes something like a folk hero to us. Actually, everything goes super well until the ogres call a truce. Torquell is brought to meet with his old master, Isadora, and he's made an offer. Stop the revolution, keep everything that he's taken so far, and rule over his people however he sees fit. The only stipulation: ogres stay on top. The status quo remains unchanged. And shockingly, Torquell accepts these terms, immediately daydreaming about all the good he'll do for all his people. He'll treat his humans well. He won't beat them or starve them. He will be a good master. And then Torquell, our protagonist, our stand-in for us, dies. Torquell never ends the revolution, he never walks away from this meeting alive. Minith poisons him and Isadora both. And as he's dying, Minith explains that Torquell might have been the greatest ogre of all time. He might have been the best master to ever do it. The best master to ever master. But when you're property, it doesn't matter if your owner treats you well or poorly. The ownership is all.
Friends, every word of this book is a new indictment of capitalism in all its entrenched forms. From the language that it uses to refer to the classes of people, ogres, landlords, masters, humans are referred to as economics, or monkeys sometimes, dreadful words that invoke wasp property owners and American slavery. And those are awful things, but also what this book is about. Economics, slavery, and how it works. The socioeconomic system at play in Ogres is called feudalism. And I know I used to hear that word and think, who are we feuding? So let's define it real quick in words we can understand. Most fairy tales and fantasy stories we read are set in a time where that system was in control of how everybody's lives operated. We kind of absorb the hierarchy without even realizing it. Actually, secretly crave it. What little kid doesn't want to be a prince or princess? Feudalism was a medieval social and political system where society was structured in a strict hierarchy. At the top, there was a king. Under him, lords owned land and granted portions to vassals in exchange for loyalty and military service. At the bottom of the system were serfs or peasants who worked the land and had minimal rights and freedoms. The key characteristics of this system were rigid social stratification, land-based power relationships, limited social mobility, and an exploitation of the laboring class. That sounds like feudalism to me. And this is exactly where we're thrown into the world of ogres at the beginning of the story. It gives the book an almost fairy tale feel, in my opinion. You've got a village centered around a local headman, Torquell's father, powerful landlords, the ogres like Sir Peter, humans serving as the equivalent of serfs, and a strict social hierarchy enforced through violence and tradition. As the story progresses, it gradually pulls the rug out from under us and reveals that this isn't just feudalism we're dealing with. This is Technofeudalism, an advanced form of feudalism in which technology is the same thing that gives people the power of lords, rather than just the land. And here's how Ogres depicts Technofeudalism. Society is technologically regressed for most, while the ruling class of ogres maintain advanced capabilities. These technological advantages are what we discussed in my video about speed in politics, transportation, communication, weapons of war, and anything that generally speeds up society. To top it all off and to make sure nothing disrupts their perfect order, they've genetically engineered humans to be docile vegetarians to maintain their place at the top. Ogres blends all of these things together to create a world both utterly mad and exactly the future that these people want.
What are ogres? It's a great question, isn't it? For one, ogres are larger than humans. They can eat meat and own the means of production. They're faster, stronger, and all around better than filthy little humans. Economics. Ogres, my friend, rule the world. Oh, alright, you caught me. Ogres are capitalists, through and through. Or at least we were, back when capitalism was a thing. Did away with all that nonsense. We're past that now. And we ogres rebuilt the world as it should be, with the rich on top and everybody else below us doing our busy work. In the end, changing the world was too complicated, and left to their habits, people wouldn't change. So we had to change the people. You know the story. Back during the brink, we genetically modified humans to be our small, docile vegetarian pets. You know, Torquell's even referred to Isadora's pet at one point. Really makes me think about what we've done to dogs, doesn't it? Anyway, humans have been conditioned to accept ogre rule as the natural order of things. Something that bastard Karl Marx referred to as false consciousness. Or in simple terms for you economics, the oppressed class will internalize the ideologies of the ruling class, accepting their subordinate position as inevitable, justified even. Indeed, Torquell eventually comes to know the truth. And as they say, the truth will set you free. Yes, humans were genetically modified, but they were convinced to do so by the capitalists, who convinced them they were doing it for the greater good. You know, to end world hunger and war and whatnot. And lie, of course. See, the ogres were the ones who engineered the artificial scarcity in the first place. We make more money that way, you know? People think there's not enough food to go around as is, while crops spoil in the fields. To us ogres, that's a good thing. It's all just economics.
The depressing thing about this book is that even though it's a ridiculous premise, all of this feels not only completely plausible, but weirdly inevitable. Like that torment nexus tweet. And perhaps that's because Tchaikovsky based this book on a real scientific proposal. When I asked him where he got the idea, this is what he said. It's based on real ideas that have been proposed to solve global shortages. These make everyone genetically smaller and vegetarian. And my response to hearing those ideas, because the well-meaning scientists behind them do not at any point consider such remedies might not be applied evenly by those in power. Oh, why yes. While researching this video, I did actually reach out to him and asked him a few questions about the book, which he generously answered. And if he could, I'll share his answers with you after we get through this learning part. Or I wrote it all out like a traditional article on Substack. So go read it there, link in the description. Right, now let's talk about the technological superiority of the ogres, using a little concept from Karl Marx. Yeah, we're getting into him in this video. All right, historical materialism. This one's a little complicated. I actually covered this topic a little bit in my video about speed and politics 2 videos ago. Go watch it. Basically, the base structure of a society is usually determined by the material and technological capabilities of that society. For example, rather than ever giving up oligarchical power, the hyper-wealthy will always look to new technology as a way to control people and maintain their position at the top of the hierarchy. By having complete control over technology, they determine what skills people in society need to have to engage with that technology. If they can get people to willingly use this technology, perfect. And if they can't, then they use their vast amounts of wealth and power to force it down our throats. They just make it impossible not to use. Like, not a lot of normal people want AI and everything, but they keep shoving it in there regardless, forcing us to use it. Still haven't updated my phone to that Apple Intelligence crap. All right, let's get back to ogres for a second, the topic of this video. Throughout the book, we see Minith, Isadora's other pet human, constantly talking to people. Everywhere they go, she talks to somebody, chatting up the other economics. Turns out she was secretly organizing Torquell's coming revolution. See, revolutions aren't this singular event. Torquell didn't wake up one day and think, I'm gonna start the revolution. It was a slow process of learning, education, gentle nudging by Minith, and eventually, as I said earlier, one straw past the camel's back breaking is all it took for all that years of work finally coming to fruition. Revolutions like Torquell's are born from the higher idea of social change. So it's rare to see a revolution pop up in isolation. There's always contributing factors ahead of time and always people putting in the work to get it started. Change takes time. Henry Ford was the first American oligarch to pay his workers a living wage, $8 an hour. He would send his thugs to people's houses to make sure they were living up to his standards. Kind of weirdo behavior, but he still paid out. But this wasn't some new idea Ford cooked up to revolutionize labor. No, people had been working since the 1860s on this project, forcing the issue and getting beaten by anti-unionist thugs like the Pinkertons. So people in revolutionary movements like Torquell, who are the driving force of the action, are referred to as the revolutionary vanguard. These are people that usually come from somewhere in the ruling class itself who fund and drive revolutions. They've been wronged somehow by the people above them and want to see something change. Whatever that thing was, it caused them to side with the underclass versus the overclass. If a revolution is society descending into mob rule in the anacyclosis cycle, then these are the people that are going to lead us out of mob rule back into monarchy, restarting the entire cycle. Torquell's position as a pseudo-member of the overclass is what leads to his success, but also to his downfall. Spoilers, this book is a tragedy. In the end, Torquell is revealed to be nothing but another filthy ogre. He's offered a deal by Isadora and the ogres. End the revolution and keep everything he's taken so far. It's a great deal for Torquell. Almost too good. Torquell would be able to keep his land, rule his people however he sees fit. Go ahead, make a communist utopia. Run it however you'd like, but don't upset the natural order of the world. Ogres remain at the top, economics at the bottom. Under no circumstances is he to upset the carefully constructed order that the ogres have engineered. King in his castle and whatnot, and Torquell, unfortunately accepts ending the revolution. Or he would have if Minith hadn't come in and saved it at the last second. When it comes to overthrowing social order, those who come from privileged backgrounds, despite their best intentions, may be unable to fully shed their class interests and perspectives. This can lead to a disconnect between the leaders of the revolution and the masses they're trying to mobilize, and the anacyclosis wheel keeps turning. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. This is why revolutions often replicate the very power structures they were seeking to overthrow. In my last video, I mentioned that violent revolutions are 15% more likely to backslide into a civil war than a non-violent one. This is why. Violent revolutions often lead to new forms of oppression, rather than true liberation. Lenin's revolution eventually gave us Stalin, just like the American Revolution eventually gave us Andrew Jackson. Or Trump.
You know, this is a tale as old as time. Violence only leads to more violence.
By discarding Torquell once his usefulness had run its course, the revolution is able to continue.
Yeah, that was kind of boring. Let's get to something fun, shall we? I mentioned earlier while researching for this project that I asked Adrien Tchaikovsky a few questions about the book, and he generously sent me some answers, which, as I mentioned earlier, you can read on my Substack. He actually had some really insightful things to say. Gonna be honest with you, I don't know how much Substacking I'll actually be doing. That just feels like the best delivery method for a Q&A. Anyway, let me give you a little preview of what you're gonna read. Starting with this quick interview. Hi, thanks for taking me call, Mr. Tchaikovsky. Oh, never mind then. I did say quick. Anyway, here's a few of my favourite of his written answers. Do you think the inherent concept of property/ownership over something is born from selfishness, jealousy and greed? Or is it more of a neutral force without inherent emotional drives tied to it?
This is a very complex subject, and I'm honestly not quite sure what I think. I suspect there's something inherent to the human mind about ownership, the connection of effort spent with the right to enjoy the benefits of that effort. There's some sort of shift in human nature. I can't remember the exact time frame, but for hundreds of thousands of years, stone tools seem to be fairly static across the world, and are obviously being created where they're needed from flint, and then discarded after. And other tool-using animals don't hoard the tools they've spent time to create. I do wonder whether the idea of keeping hold of the thing you make, so you don't have to make it anew, wasn't a major part of human development. It's a bit depressing, but that would also be the seeds of a great deal of later problems in ownership, economy, all that sort of thing. As far as the book goes, it raises the questions but doesn't necessarily have the answers.
Would you consider this a satire?
Honestly, not really. It's a straight up dystopia based on some reasonably solid science. So it lacks the excess and exaggeration and most of the humour I'd associate with satire.
My favourite line from the book is the final line. Spoilers, but we'll keep lighting fires and teaching the truth until the whole world is burning and all the masters are gone. We're in the process of writing. Did you come up with that line? Do you usually have the end of a book in mind ahead of time, or do you figure it out as it goes?
I never know where individual lines come from. I'm in constant dialogue with my subconscious at that kind of level. I just know it sounds right.
And speaking of just knowing what sounds right, I too am a bit of a writer. Yeah, I know. I recently had a short story published in this book right here, called Primal Voices. My story is about a group of scouts who have to deal with the raptor attack while camping. Now, if that sounds exciting to you, buy yourself a copy using the link in the video description. Otherwise, thanks for watching.